with the keynote speech by Leal, who is an old friend of ours, professor in Japan, and well, he graduated in Japan. He's Brazilian from Pernambuco, but he graduated in Japan, then he went to California. He is a fantastic, and so we invited him for a keynote speech, and so he prepared a video for us. Please, professor in Japan, start here. Walter, are you online? Yes, I'm here. Thank you for accepting the invitation by CNPq. I'm sorry for the delay. We are not as punctual as we wish for, but you can be sure we're making an effort. And I had the opportunity to watch the video. It's wonderful, the way that you conducted it, and we are going to enjoy very much your effort. And thank you very much from CNPq. So with the floor, then Professor Leal, I had the opportunity to who is professor at UC Davis. Walter. Thank you, Professor Evaldo Vilela, President of CNPq and President of the Brazilian Academy of Science, Luiz Davidovich, and we are all very proud of the Brazilian Academy of Science, the ABC, and the President will be a woman as of next month, for the first time in the history of the Academy. We are very proud of Professor Helena and also proud of the Academy for this milestone. Congratulations to you all. Also greeting the other authorities, professors, students, everyone who is in the CNPq auditorium as well, and those who are with us on YouTube. We have 112 people participating on YouTube, and it's very interesting. The presentation of the magazine is very interesting. The Revista Que, water, it's really beautiful publication. I'm very proud of it. And I'm even a bit embarrassed because now I don't know how I'm going to match the level of the presentation of my predecessor. First, I would like to say that I'm very thankful for the invitation. UC Davis is also very honored for participating. Professor Evaldo said he invited me because of some details, but the fact is that they wanted a speaker from California, and the only one that wakes up early is myself. They had no other option, and so that's why they invited me. Of course, the presentation would be better if it were an in-person presentation, because I would join you at Mangai restaurant for some good food. You know, Zoom is a miracle in this pandemic, but it can be a bit boring as well, especially for long talks. They had no other option, and so today I did things a little differently. Enjoy it. If you don't, you can ask for reimbursement, because it was free of charge and you will have 100% reimbursement anyway. So Professor Evaldo forgot two important details. He forgot to say that I am from Pernambuco and that I worked at Rádio Jornal do Comércio. I actually paid for my education working for a radio station, and so today it will be Pernambuco speaking to the world. Free of charge, and you will have 100% reimbursement anyway. So Professor Evaldo forgot for a radio station.
Vamos então começar agora com a agenda do nosso.
So we will start with a message from our Chancellor, Dr. Gary May.
It's Gary May, and I'm the Chancellor of UC Davis in Northern California. I want to send my congratulations to CNPq on its 70th anniversary. UC Davis enjoys many successful relations with Brazil and the CNPq. We have strong faculty collaborations, more than 1,000 publications with Brazil in 2016. Our university also has 4 active agreements of cooperation with institutions in Brazil. UC Davis is home to more than 150 students and scholars from Brazil annually, and nearly 100 Davis faculty with professional links to Brazil. We are thankful to the CNPq for funding UC Davis' Science Without Borders program since 2012. which has supported more than 100 Brazilian students from the fields of animal science and plant biology to chemical engineering and environmental management. This program has transformed lives and enriched our UC Davis community. Congratulations once again to the CNPq. UC Davis is grateful for your partnership, and I look forward to collaborating more with our CNPq for funding UC Davis' Science Without Borders program since 2012.
Nosso agradecimento ao chanceler.
Thank you, Chancellor May, for your message. As he said in the message, we have
this program has transformed lives and enriched our UC Davis community. Congratulations once again to the CNPq. UC Davis is grateful for your partnership, and I look forward to collaborating more with our
group, together with a group of ESALP and IMCT, the CMU chemists, the Professor Oliveira, and also Chancellor Márcio Silva Filho, from the University of Symposium. And this was considered one of the best publications of ISME journal in 2021. UC Davis, congratulations to the group. During these 70 years, CNPq did some great things for science in Brazil and also for training of staff, influenced the lives of many people, including some who continue to have a brilliant international career, such as Professor José Scheinkman. Congratulations to the group. During these 70 years, it's a great pleasure to have in our celebration of the 70 years of CNPq, Professor José Scheinkman.
Thank you. É grande prazer.
It's a great pleasure for me. I am, in fact, a child of CNPq, a creation of CNPq, so a product, right? So it's very important to participate in the celebration of this institution that has done so much for Brazil. Your brilliant career, you are now professor at Columbia University and also emeritus professor of Princeton. You are famous in Chicago. This brilliant career started with a scientific initiation grant from CNPq. Is that true? Yes, it's true. It started when I, by chance, showed up at the door of IMPA to take a course. IMPA, of course, at that time was an institution that was part of CNPq. It was not yet an autonomous institution that it became later. It was part of CNPq. So I got to IMPA to take a course. And mid-course, or towards the end of the course, Professor Leopoldo Narbing, one of the major Brazilian mathematicians of his generation, great mathematician, he said that I could obtain a scientific initiation grant from CNPq. I didn't even know that such a thing existed. And CNPq played a key role in research and development in Brazil. But let's start with an important fact, an important milestone. The capacity building of Brazilian mathematics. Can you comment on that? Of course. When we started, we had some Brazilian heroes who had studied part abroad, part in Brazil. The first doctorates, doctors coming from the U.S. And so this is the generation that I met when I arrived at IMPA. Narbi, Maurício Peixoto, Elon Lages Lima. So these people were already there. Silvio Machado. So these are the first people that had gone to take a doctorate in the U.S. and had returned to IMPA. And this was complemented by a great number of foreign visitors, foreign professors who came, gave courses, spent some time, etc. With time, IMPA became increasingly important for mathematics, not only in Brazil, but in the world. And the culmination of this was the Fields Medal given to Arthur Ávila, which is not only a medal given to a Brazilian, and that in itself is already very meritorious, but it is a medal given to a person who was trained, took his doctorate, wrote his doctorate thesis at IMPA, a Brazilian institution. And I think it will take some time for a person with training, for another person, right, trained in the Southern Hemisphere, completely in the Southern Hemisphere, to win the Fields Medal, because the other people from the Global South, the so-called Global South, such as the Iranian mathematician who won the following version of the Fields Medal, she was trained in the United States, partly in Iran, but she took her doctorate in the US. Arthur was an IMPA product, and this is very important. I would like to present some data now from the Congressional Research Service, a group of the U.S. Congress that analyzes scientific data. And as shown here in the graph, the financial resources, the funding, and where the funding is coming from, of course, for basic research, most of the resources come from the federal government, with almost 41% of these resources. But we can see here that the businesses, right, the public sector also participates with a major share of the resources, even for basic research. But when we talk about applied science, the participation in the private sector is much higher, 55%, and a smaller share of the federal government. But we can see here that the businesses, right, the public sector also
A
participates
participação
with a
do setor privado.
In the area of development, there is greater participation of the private sector on this type of research, and a small part by the federal government for development. And where
Os gráficos
are
de
these
participação do
Res-
setor
where is this
privado.
research carried out? Well, federal governments not only finance research, but they carry out research such as USDA, UNAID. They also fund research by other labs, such as my case here at the university. So the higher education universities have the largest amount of basic research. And business also quite close, right? But they carry out applied research. The private sector has a higher number, 58%, and for development, almost all private, with 90% of research. So it is important for us to know where is this research taking place, and we are going to show several examples of financing entities. As shown here, in 2012, for the financing of my research by NIH, USDA, NIFA, also a corporation that had a contract with FIPS and CAPES. What we have here is a very diversified portfolio with at least 26 agencies. In addition, state-level agencies, there's also the private sector and philanthropy. Let's talk about these cases. Let's talk about the National Science Foundation. And I invited a former director of NSF, Professor John Wingfield. Bom primeiro, state-level
Here on 70 years of funding science. I'm delighted to have an opportunity to tell you a little bit of how the National Science Foundation works. It is an unusual funding agency in the US in that it only funds fundamental science, basic sciences, the spectrum of sciences, and which can inform education that is then taken over by the National National Institutes of Health, U.S. Department of Agriculture, and so forth. But within the Science Foundation, there is a director and an assistant and a director that are appointed by the President of the United States. Then there are spectrum of assistant directors, each one of which is the head of one of the scientific directors. I was head of biology for 4 years. More recently, there have been more directorates that have been appointed a big funding increase to the National Science Foundation to develop technologies associated with energy and food and also implement. But the fundamental 7 directorates are still there. Within biology, we had 4 divisions, each one with its division director. For example, there would be molecular cell biology, division of integrated organismal systems, division of environmental biology, and biological infrastructure, which funds a lot of big equipment within biological sciences, core areas and so forth, as well as stations.
Thank you very much, John Paul, for being with us today and participating in this celebration.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
It is also interesting to know how NASA finances its research, and I invited Dr. Nantel Suzuki to talk to us. É prazer tê-lo aqui.
System of NASA's Artemis project. Nantel, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you. We're excited to return astronauts to the moon through the program, and we're hoping for 2025 if we can, so very soon.
Nantel, how does NASA go about funding the research that's needed for those projects? System of NASA's
NASA is a $24 billion agency every year is our budget, and we have many different projects in that. For space exploration, 2025, small programs. The one I'm working on is to build a lunar lander for astronauts, the human landing system. We recently signed a contract. SpaceX. NASA is a $4 billion contract agency develops and demonstrates that. And we have we kind of do a partnership approach where we have contractors that work closely with NASA in collaboration, but they have specific responsibilities. And we have NASA engineers who work with the company's engineers. We don't own the hardware. We are paying for the development and the demonstration of a spacecraft. We collect data from, so we can use data in the future for other projects. But they have specific responsibilities. But in this case, the ownership of the hardware belongs to the engineers. And so we kind of share own the risks and the bits of this program so that they can use their spacecraft for NASA purposes and also for their own commercial purposes. In the future for other projects.
Thank you very much, Nantel, for your participation today.
My pleasure, Walter. Thank you. In this case, the ownership of the hardware belongs to the engineers. And so we kind of share own the risks and the
Another line of financing is the subfunding. Professor Bruce Hammock has worked in this program for 35 years, and I invited him to talk to us about it.
My pleasure,
one of the
Walter.
grants that I have in the laboratory. The program actually started with what's called into the U.S. And these are toxic waste sites
Another line of
that were
financing
designated by
is the
Congress as
subfunding. Professor
funding
Bruce
for the amount
Hammock
given by
has
Congress.
worked in this
And they took a percentage of that
program
money
for
and
35
gave it to
years,
NIH
and I invited him
to
to
do the
talk to us
basic
about it.
research needed to evaluate one of the critical human exposures and how to avoid human exposure and how to mitigate the Superfund toxic waste. And these are toxic waste. This program has now been going on, designated by Congress. Davis was the first program in the nation by Congress to actually receive funding, which we've received continually. Since the program to do the 5 years.
Financiamento da pesquisa nos diversos laboratórios é comum, mas existem também os centros de pesquisa. E para falar sobre
common to have this financing, and I invited Professor John Hildebrand from the University of Arizona to talk to us.
Hildebrand, who is the International Secretary of the National Academy of Science and also a corresponding member of the Brazilian Academy of Science. John, it's a great pleasure to have you here today.
To have this financing,
so much, Walter.
and I invited
And
Professor
honored to participate in this 70th anniversary celebration of the CNPq and to acknowledge its president, my colleague and friend Oliveira, as well as the leaders of the Brazilian Academy of Sciences, also great friends and colleagues, Luis Davidovich and Helena Nader. So much, Walter. Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm honored to participate
John, we are
in the
talking about
70th anniversary.
and I remember that you played a crucial role in the foundation of the Center for Insect Science at the University of
Brazilian Academy of Sciences, also
and how the funding to that initiative.
Helena Nader. Yeah, that's a wonderful story, and I'm so glad you asked me, Walter. In 1987, I believe it was, I got together just in the late afternoon to have a beer with two colleagues, one from the Department of Chemistry and the other from the Department of Entomology, and I from my new Department of Neuroscience at the University of Arizona. So the three of us in different departments all shared research activity on insects. And we, in the course of our conversation, with help from beer, we came up with a great idea, which was to establish a center for insect science that would be broadly based and would draw people from all over the university who were working one way or another with insects. How to fund it, though? This was the question. How do we launch such an invention that came across different colleges and in our conversation? Well, it happened at that time that the National Science Foundation had just launched a new program called the Biological Centers Grants Program, and there was a call for proposals. Well, we thought we might not have much of a chance because they had just started this program, great proposals from all over the country, but we put in a very strong proposal, and to our astonishment, we received one of the three biological centers grants that were awarded from the National Science Foundation. And with that funding, we were able to in 1988. That was a project that was a 25-year project. The first 5 years of it funded we put it very well by the National Science Foundation Centers Grant. And then after that, we had fully established the center, and it was up and doing all the success we had hoped it would do. And we were able to secure all kinds of other grant funding, private foundations and funding agencies. But it was the National Science Foundation that took a chance with us and helped us start the center. So it was pivotally important support. And then after that,
thank you much. And I hope we're going to see you at the meetings of ABC in Rio de Janeiro or another meeting organized by CNPq.
I look forward to that very much, Walter. Thank you so much.
We're now going to talk about the synergy of financial resources from the private sector with the federal government. I invited Dr. Tamy, Rockey.
I hope we're going to see you celebration of the 7th year of the CNPq. She's the inaugural executive director of the Foundation for Food and Agricultural
synergy of financial resources from the private sector with the federal government.
Today.
Thank you so much for me, Walter, and congratulations on the 70 years.
Rockey, what's the the CNPq Agricultural Research FAR.
So FAR is which is a nonprofit organization. We are the foundation for the United States Department of Agriculture, but we're also an independent foundation, receive money from Congress. And what we do, we're a third type of funding for agricultural research, which we create the combination of the two, in that we create public-private partnerships to advance science.
You also spent 20 years as USDA in the Cooperative State Research, Education, and Extension Service. How that differs from FAR and from other sources of funding for research in the United States?
Well, of course, the USDA is a government agency and nonprofit, so government agency is different than the foundation in that it is public sector that is funded through the United States government. And the USDA has both an intramural laboratories, that means they have their own government scientists, and they also have extramural programs, which are grant programs that go out to scientists throughout the United States and around the world to conduct innovative research. So I spent almost 20 years there overseeing the grant process, a large piece of what the U.S. does, and they are very innovative and they are very creative, and they do a lot of intramural laboratories. That means they
have such a unique perspective because you serve at the NIH as NIH Director for Extramural Research. Can you explain to us what's the difference between NIH and the USDA that you just explained?
Right, so the USDA is the Department of Agriculture. Their concentration in the science area, of course, is on agricultural research. The National Institutes of Health is also a science agency in the federal government of the United States, but its concentration is on biomedical research. NIH, as it's called, is the largest research organization in the world. They have a $50 billion a year appropriation to conduct extraordinarily innovative research that improves people's and the health of people around the world. They are primarily extramural, which means they give most of their money out in the form of grants. About 85% of their funding goes out in the form of grants, but they also have a large intramural program. Again, intramural means government scientists building their own laboratories. So it's an amazing place. Most of you probably heard a lot about NIH during the COVID pandemic because NIH did some of the funded research in the development of the vaccines. Thank you for having me.
Vamos falar agora de NIFA.
Former director
So it's an amazing place. Most of you probably heard a lot about NIH during the COVID pandemic because NIH did some of the
NIFA during the Obama administration. Sonny, such a great pleasure to have you today.
Walter, thank you so much for having me as part of this wonderful celebration of the 70th anniversary of the Brazilian equivalent of the National Science Foundation. So NIFA, N-I-F-A, it stands for the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, and it is comparable to the National Science Foundation in the United States and the National Institutes of Health and other federal funding agencies. These are created and they get money appropriated by Congress to be science, education, transmission of knowledge, and the delivery of knowledge to the end users. And so NIFA, very specific, and is about agriculture, food, about environmental issues, climate change, and things like that, particularly related to agriculture and nutrition. The money that comes to NIFA is appropriated by the United States Congress. The recommendation is made by the president, and then Congress will appropriate. And the budget for NIFA is around $1.7 billion US dollars. And it's also because states are required to match, and the leverage ends $5 billion to $7 billion total funding for food and agricultural research. The recommendation.
Thank you very much, Sonny, for making the time to talk to us today.
Thank you.
Uma outra linha de financiamento de pesquisa.
Very common research financing line in the United States is philanthropy, and to explain how philanthropy participates in American research, I invited Professor Tony James from the University of California in Irvine.
Such a great pleasure to have with us today in the celebration of the 70th anniversary of CNPq, Professor Tony James from UC Irvine. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Walter, and thanks for the opportunity. And I would like to say congratulations on achieving this significant milestone. It's been my honor to have brilliant Brazilian scientists working in my laboratory throughout my career. We work on the insect vectors of disease, focusing on mosquitoes that transmit human malaria parasites and arboviruses. We are developing genetic tools to prevent the transmission by mosquitoes of these specific pathogens. When I first started working in this area, we had to do a significant amount of technical development to make it possible. This development helped us do things like isolating genes, develop transgenesis strategies to test or control DNAs, and ultimately develop gene drive systems for rapid introduction of desirable traits into populations. This kind of technology was not funded by the conventional governmental funding agencies, for example, NIH, but through private support, starting with the vision of the John D. Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation to bring modern science and molecular genetics to vector biology. Agencies such as the Burroughs Wellcome and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation made possible taking on research that paid off only when they were completed. Because our work straddles the basic and applied, foundation support was absolutely critical. Starting with the vision of the John D.
So, vector biology, as you know today, would exist without it.
That is correct. I mean, the spark that lit the fire was provided by the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation. And then, of course, following that, federal agencies like the National Institutes of Health taking on that were basic in this area. Actually, the stimulus is provided by a private foundation. Great, and once again, congratulations. It's a milestone. The fire was provided by the two progressive well in the future.
Philanthropia também se
In
destaca.
philanthropy, we also have the HHMI, which finances research, including the research by a famous Brazilian, Daniel Mucida. He is from Minas Gerais, and he did his graduation at the Federal University of Minas Gerais. After that, he took his PhD at the University of São Paulo and also New York University. Daniel, it's a pleasure to have you with us. We also have the HHMI, which finances research.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for being here and also to congratulate you for the 70 years at CNPq. It is essential for Brazilian science and research. Daniel, you are a researcher HHNMI. Would you like to explain to us what it means and how it helps in the fomenting of research here in the U.S.? Well, the HHMI means Howard Hughes Medical Institute. It is a philanthropical institute, non-profit in the U.S., one of the largest in the world in terms of grants, that was established a few decades ago to help in the complementation of public financing to research in the U.S. Obviously, being a very large institute, it complements the grants that come from the government. For example, NIH and my university and your university receive financing from them, but it is a complement, a complementation, a supplementation of an initiative that is private, philanthropic, and helps us. Research. It has around 300 researchers in the U.S., investigators of the Howard Hughes medical institute, and basically it provides grants that is generous for lab research, and also it helps as because it covers wages. Instead of having the salary paid by the federal government, it covers our wages, and also gives opportunities for extra grants such as equipment, etc., in addition to the yearly research grants for lab research, and also it helps as in addition to the R01 that comes from the federal government. Daniel, government it covers. In your history, you also had a fellowship, a grant for such as scientific initiation, right? In Brazil, when you studied at the Federal University of Minas Gerais, right? Yes, no doubt that the CNPq grant I received was a very valuable help when I was starting my career as a researcher at the University of Minas Gerais in Brazil. And it actually allowed me to go into science without having to have a job, so that I had an allowance for transportation and food, etc. And that was really important. And we need to update the scientific grants that were cut recently. In my case, and many other researchers, it was science without help. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you for being here with us. And to talk about innovation, I invited Scott Hutchinson, and that was really important. And we need to update the scientific grants that were cut recently.
He was in the faculty at the University of Nebraska as a professor, served also in the private sector, former president of the Entomological Society of America, and recently served as Secretary of Agriculture of the United States Department of Agriculture. Scott, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Leal. It's such a pleasure to see you, my friend, and I'm honored to be able to contribute to the special program. First, let me just say many congratulations to CNPq on a distinct history leading to the 70th milestone anniversary. What a tremendous legacy you all have made, Phil, and indeed the world, by focusing on tremendous scientific talent. Thank you so much on your nation's biggest challenges, and by working collaboratively with your global counterparts, like the Global Network of Official Sciences Academy Council, the Inter-American Academies of Sciences, just to name a few. You've really expanded your impact and influence. And most of all, you're still very, very young and have so much more influence and impact ahead.
Well, you have a background that comes from academia and also private sector. You have this vision that you should have innovation and the discovery goals are very important in our enterprise. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for sure. I mean, from the private sector through my time at USDA, one of the things that I've advocated for strongly is the notion of that means is we all understand, and certainly this audience understands the importance of research in all facets and approaches to really understand and scope the possibilities. And we also have many opportunities through the government, through various organizations, including private organizations, to develop a strategy, to develop things that really we look at need to address in the future. But Walter, what's often missing is somewhere in the middle, that vision of what that solution could look like. What is the outcome of this research? How does it link together? Because there are so many moving parts, and no particular program is likely to solve the entire challenge. And so it's important to develop what I refer to as discovery goals to steer, guide the development of research towards those outcomes to help best address those solutions that we all seek, whether it's in terms of environmental, in terms of economical aspects of agriculture, which has been, and no particular program is entire challenge.
Thank you
So it's important
for your
to develop what I
participation
refer
today.
to as discovery
É um
goals.
prazer enorme ver o progresso da ciência brasileira.
It is great to see the progress of Brazilian science, as shown here in this graph by the National Science Foundation, including 15 countries, producers of publications in science and engineering. And this is only including
É um prazer enorme ver o progresso da
domestic
ciência brasileira.
authors, not those in collaboration with international authors. Brazil was on 17th position and now we are 10th. This is great. Of course, we know China and the US, and followed by India, Japan, Russia, Germany, UK, Italy, South Korea. Brazil is in a remarkable position. It is great to see Brazil in this position, and of course, we know that to that effect, CNPq is key for the progress of Brazilian science. China and the US, several collaborations, international collaborations, and a visit here in this photograph by the National Science Foundation, and President Aragon invited me to participate in the photo. Another important photograph, this one, the former president of Dr. Glaucio Oliveira, former president of CNPq, signing the agreement of Science Without Borders for graduate or undergraduate students. That was very important for the life of several students. One of them, Tamy Guimaraes, that is not related to Jorge Guimaraes, but she's a professor here in the US. She's Brazilian. She graduated at the Federal University of ABC. She studied her doctorate degree here in the US, and today she is a professor at Penn State in mechanical engineering. Tamy, it is a pleasure having you here with us today. Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. She's a professor here in the US. And you came here to the UC Davis as a student of Science Without Border, right? Can you talk to us about it? Yes, I've always wanted to study abroad in mechanical engineering. Since before I went to college. And I studied at UFABC, and you came here, and then I participated in the Science Without Borders program, and I studied for 2 years in UC Davis in mechanical and electrical engineering, and also I was a trainee in a campus, and it was transforming.
So that was the key for me to decide to do my doctorate. And so it's this fostering of Brazilian research that really helps in training people. So in 2018, you concluded your doctorate at Virginia Polytech, and after that you ended up applying to a Penn State to work as a professor. So the question is, why didn't you remain in Brazil? That's a good question, Professor Walter. I also had a Science Without Borders grant for the full doctorate, which I took at Virginia Tech on a mechanical engineer with a grant from Brazil as well. And of course, I wanted to return to Brazil. And for many years, I really wanted very much to return to Brazil and be back in Brazil as a professor, as a researcher, but unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity. I concluded in 2018, and I went straight on to a postdoctorate in Germany, and I also worked in the industry, and so this vacancy at Penn State was open as a professor of the Department of Mechanical Engineering, and I embraced it, and now I am in Brazil, and returning the investment that was made in my research and my training to Brazil. So just to clarify, you are paying back to Brazil the investment made not only in Penn State was open in terms of returning dollars to Brazil, but you are doing something that you have no obligation to do, which is to disseminate research and strengthen ties between Brazil and the U.S., between Penn State and other universities in Brazil, right? Exactly. I do believe in the potential of Brazilian students and the quality of teaching, higher education teaching in Brazil. And I really want to create more opportunities for Brazilian students to travel abroad and for American students to come to Brazil and spend some time here, having this experience, experiencing a different culture, a different language, an international experience in short. Tamy, is there anything else that you achieved during your time with Science Without Borders and your visit here to the U.S.? Yes, of course. In addition to the international experience, which was incredible for my English, for friendships and so on, and it was during Science Without Borders at UC Davis that I met my husband, Pedro Ivo Guimaraes. He was also Guimaraes before we met, and he was taking biotechnology at Federal University of Pará. Without the opportunity of meeting in California through the Science Without Borders, we wouldn't have met in Brazil. And so the program is very special in my heart and in my life. Another Science Without Borders student who became a data scientist, and he was Tarciso, Oliveira. 10 years ago, you worked here at UC Davis. That's true. I was starting this extraordinary adventure. What did you learn in your stay when you came with Science Without Borders? Basically, two main things. First, fluency in English, both for reading, writing, and communication. And also, I was introduced to the world of data science, which was also very important. And with this learning, how are you paying back the investment that Brazil did? Well, today, I can use the skills that I earned there first with science, fluency research, and innovation here in the country. Work at a laboratory connected to the Federal University of Campina Grande with national and international partners. And I work on development of software in the area of data science, working with artificial intelligence and state-of-the-art technology with international partners. And I'm able to contribute to the development of the country, also help at a laboratory connected to the join major nations which are advancing technological development in the world. Very good, and keep up the good work, and let's continue our celebration of the 70th anniversary of CNPq. Science Without Borders has influenced the lives of many students. Rafael today is a businessman. 10 years have gone by since you arrived here with the support of CNPq and Science Without Borders, and you spent some time here at UC Davis. What happened from then on up to now? A lot. It was the best experience of my life. From then on, after the exchange, I took my master with a master's grant from CNPq in partnership with Fundação Araucária. Then I became an engineer for an automotive company, a startup, where I am developing autonomous vehicles for industrial logistics. It was quite a long path. And what influenced you most to come here to the U.S. in terms of and also becoming a businessman 10 years later? Well, I think the communication, the English, learning English was very important, and also the challenge of it. Joining a completely new environment with unknown people, this really strengthened me as a person, personally, and also competition with Americans. So, having to work in a different environment and helped me become more confident and willing to risk and invest. Thank you. Thank you for your participation. English professor, an honor. Let us continue now with the interview with Professor José Scheinkman. What is your message here for the young people, the ones that are starting now, like you? They went to IMPA's door to take a course and ended up with a brilliant career. What message do you have for them? Well, I don't know about a brilliant career, but first I would like to give a message to politicians in Brazil. CNPq, let us continue now. It's an institution that historically is very important, and this year, well, in 2021, which has just ended, it had the smallest budget in 2 decades, and so that's something. It's a major destruction of an institution that is still very good, but could be much better if it had maintained at the growth pace that it had in past decades. And the message that I have is that doing research is interesting. It's a great academic background, and well, I'm talking about mathematics mostly, but also biology, physics, very important fields, and also social sciences such as economics, which benefits a lot from advances in these other areas. So I think it's very good. The career, even in Brazil today, in spite of all its problems created more recently, it is still a very attractive career that allows for a lot of success and integration in the world economy and the world science. And I was very enthusiastic with the number of Brazilians who are doing great research in my field, which is economics, in Brazil. They are doing state-of-the-art research, publishing in the best international journals. This is a much bigger group than when I started in this profession, because in the beginning we were just 2 or 3, right? But suddenly we get to a point when we have a large number. Frequently, Brazilian researchers are seen doing state-of-the-art studies and works that are published in very frequently cited periodicals. Now I have to ask you about your Zoom background, which is Rio de Janeiro. Yes, that's how much I miss Rio de Janeiro. I'm not in Rio de Janeiro now. I grew up there, of course, and I miss it very much. And so sometimes, well, when I didn't put this one up, I had a football one, because I am a Flamengo supporter. I still support Flamengo. And so the Zoom background links me to the culture that I miss so much in spite of all of these years in the U.S. Thank you. Thank you. That's how much I miss Rio de Janeiro. Thank you. So we are back, and in order to end, well, we know that we are going through a very difficult moment, but thanks to the mobilization of CNPq, SBQC, Brazilian Science Academy, so the resources have been released and allowing for a universal call, the HIGH project, and the continuation of the National Institutes of Science and Technology. And so we'll have better days ahead. And so let us continue. CNPq doing fantastic work in the past 70 years. I would also like to thank Nishani and Patricia, who are simultaneously translating. I think the worst is not the Portuguese to English or English to Portuguese. I think it is to understand the Portuguese spoken by a Northeasterner. They are doing excellent work in the interpretation. Elise and Mariana from ABC and CNPq as well, who have been behind this and also working Saturday, Sunday tirelessly to make this work possible. We had to do things a little differently, right? A hybrid with the live and video presentation, because the videos, when they are broadcast directly through the Zoom, they begin faltering with low quality. And so we had this strategy of kind of a sandwich, right? With an initial presentation and then the video, then the end. And so once again, I'd like to congratulate CNPq. I have 2 more hours to talk, but I know that you want to go to lunch, and if you go to Mangai, please send me a photograph of the great Northeastern food that I miss so much. And I just want to end here, like Ivan Lima at the Rádio Nacional do Comércio. He used to end by saying, and remember, supporters, Julio Adnet will always be ours, right? Of course. And so I would like to do the same. He was such an important person who helped me tremendously in my career.
But I know that you want to go to lunch, and if you go to
He actually allowed me to get into university, and so he was very important for me. So I will end as Ivan Lima saying that thanks to CNPq, the Fields Medal belongs to Avila forever. Thank you.
will always be
Thank you.
ours, right? Of course. And so I would like to do the same. He was such an important person who helped me tremendously.
On behalf of CNPq, I'd like to thank you for your participation and reminding you that we should have invited you earlier, but given all the some difficulties here during the pandemic and few staff here in-house, we weren't able to, but in the short time you did brilliant work. And this video with this keynote speech, it will remain in the history of CNPq, and we are going to disseminate it because it is sensational the way you conducted it, bringing Brazilians and Americans to talk about CNPq here and in-house. We weren't even more than that, showing how science is funded at CNPq, actually in the U.S. And this is not generally known in Brazil. Few people know how research is funded in the U.S., and you have given us very exciting information, and I'm sure people will pursue this because we have benchmarks. Life is made of benchmarks, and we are in a transition here in Brazilian science, and science all around the world as well. But I believe that here even more strongly, because we were actually a bit paralyzed in terms of funding models, and we need to evolve. This is something we are doing here at CNPq, and so what you're bringing here is very important. And I must admit to you, given my attributions here, I did not pay attention to everything, but since you were here in Brazilian science, great in preparing a recording, this will be eternal here for CNPq. We thank you very much, and we are going to reproduce it at many different moments here at CNPq. Thank you, Walter. As always, a great Brazilian helping us greatly in California. Thank you, and congratulations, and I wish you all success. Thank you, Evaldo, and also to remind you that, well, if you think that a lot is spent on research, the whole annual NIH budget here was equivalent to the amount used to purchase Twitter. One person bought Twitter with a budget that matches the spending of NIH in a year, the organization that spends most in research.